Prophecy of Ossi. To the beginning of the Lord speaking by Ossi, and the Lord said to Ossi, Go, take thee a wife of fornications, and have of her children. Of fornications, for the land by fornication shall depart from the Lord. 3 So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Debelaim, and she conceived, and bore him a son. 4 And the Lord said to him, Call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will visit the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and I will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. 6 And she conceived again, and bore a daughter, and he said to him, Call her name, Without Mercy, for I will not add any more to have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will utterly forget them. 8 And she weaned her that was called Without Mercy. And she conceived, and bore a son. 9 And he said, Call his name, Not my people. For you are not my people, and I will not be yours. 10 And the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, that is without measure, and shall not be numbered. And it shall be in the place where it shall be said to them, You are not my people, it shall be said to them, Ye are the sons of the living God. 11 And the children of Judah, and the children of Israel, shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint themselves one head, and shall come up out of the land, for great is the day of Jezreel. Say yet to your brethren, You are my people, and to your sister, Thou hast obtained mercy. 2 Judge your mother, judge her, because she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her put away her fornications from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts. 24 And I will say to that which is not my people, Thou art my people, and they shall say, Thou art my God. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord shall enter into judgment with the inhabitants of the land, for there is no truth, and there is no mercy, and there is no knowledge of God in the land. 2 Cursing, and lying, and killing, and theft, and adultery, have overflowed, and blood hath touched blood. 3 Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth in it shall languish with the heat of the field, and with the fowls of the air. Yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be gathered together. 7 According to the multitude of them, so have they sinned against me, I will change their glory into shame. 8 They shall eat the sins of my people, and shall lift up their souls to their iniquity. 6 For I desired mercy, and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than holocausts. When I would have healed Israel, the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered, and the wickedness of Samaria, for they have committed falsehood. And the thief is come in to steal, the robber is without. Let there be a trumpet in thy throat like an eagle upon the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant, and have violated my law. For you speak words of an unprofitable vision. And you shall make a covenant, and judgment shall spring up as bitterness in the furrows of the field. 13 You have plowed wickedness, you have reaped iniquity, you have eaten the fruit of lying. Because thou hast trusted in thy ways, in the multitude of thy strong ones. 14 A tumult shall arise among thy people, and all thy fortresses shall be destroyed as Salmona was destroyed, by the house of him that judged Baal in the day of battle, the mother being dashed in pieces upon her children. 15 So hath Bethel done to you, because of the evil of your iniquities. As the morning passeth, so hath the king of Israel passed away. Because Israel was a child, and I loved him, and I called my son out of Egypt. Ephraim feedeth on the wind, and followeth the burning heat, all the day long he multiplied lies and desolation, and he hath made a covenant with the Assyrians, and carried oil into Egypt. 7 He is like Shannon, there is a deceitful balance in his hand, he hath loved oppression. 8 And Ephraim said, But yet I am become rich, I have found me an idol, all my labors shall not find me the iniquity that I have committed. 14 Ephraim hath provoked me to wrath with his bitterness, and his blood shall come upon him, and his Lord will render his reproach unto him. When Ephraim spoke, a horror seized Israel, and he sinned in Baal, and died. Let Samaria perish, Bexus she hath stirred up her God to bitterness, let them perish by the sword, let their little ones be dashed, and let the women with child be ripped up. To return, O Israel, to the Lord thy God, for thou hast fallen down by thy iniquity. 3. Take with you words, and return to the Lord, and say to him, Take away all iniquity. And receive the good, and we will render the calves of our lips. 9. Ephraim shall say, What have I to do any more with idols? I will hear him, and I will make him flourish like a green fir tree, from me is thy fruit found. 10. Who is wise, and he shall understand these things. Prudent, and he shall know these things. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the just shall walk in them, but the transgressors shall fall in them. Dash. Prophecy of Joel. The word of the Lord, that came to Joel, the son of Phachuel. For that which the palmerworm hath left, the locust hath eaten, and that which the locust hath left, the bruchus hath eaten, and that which TB bruchus hath left, the mildew hath destroyed. Dash. 23. And you, O children of Zion, rejoice, and be joyful in the Lord your God, because he hath given you a teacher of justice, and he will make the early and the latter rain to come down to you as in the beginning. 25. And I will restore to you the years which the locust, and the bruchus, and the mildew, and the palmerworm hath eaten, my great host which I sent upon you. 30. And I will shew wonders in heaven, and in earth, blood, and fire, and vapor of smoke. 31. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and dreadful day of the Lord doth come. 32. And it shall come to pass, that every one that shall call upon the name of the Lord, shall be saved, for in Mount Zion, and in Jerusalem, shall be salvation, as the Lord hath said, and in the residue whom the Lord shall call. Dash. 2. I will gather together all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Josaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people, and for my inheritance, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and have parted my land. 17. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. And Jerusalem shall be holy, and strangers shall pass through it no more. 18. And it shall come to pass in that day, that the mountains shall drop down sweetness, aud. The hills shall flow with milk, and waters shall flow through all the rivers of Judah, and a fountain shall come forth of the house of the Lord, and shall water the torrent of thorns. 19. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom a wilderness destroyed, because they have done unjustly against the children of Judah, and have shed innocent blood in their land. 20. And Judea shall be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem to generation and generation. 21. And I will cleanse their blood, which I had not cleansed, and the Lord will dwell in Zion. Dash. Prophecy of Amos. The words of Amos, who was among the herdsmen of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel. In the days of Ozias king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam the son of Joas king of Israel. 2 years before the earthquake. Dash. Hear the word that the Lord hath spoken concerning you, O ye children of Israel, concerning the whole family that I brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, To you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore will I visit upon you all your iniquities. Dash. Hear ye this word, which I take up concerning you for a lamentation. The house of Israel is fallen, and it shall rise no more. 12. Because I know your manifold crimes, and your grievous sins, enemies of the just, taking bribes, and oppressing the poor in the gate. 13. Therefore the prudent shall keep silence at that time, for it is an evil time. 14. Seek ye good, and not evil, that you may live, and the Lord the God of hosts will be with you, as you have said. 15. Hate evil, and love good, and establish judgment in the gate, it may be the Lord the God of hosts may have mercy on the remnant of Joseph. 27. And I will cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Lord, the God of hosts is his name. Dash. 15. But behold, I will raise up a nation against you, O house of Israel, saith the Lord the God of hosts, and they shall destroy you from the entrance of Emath, even to the torrent of the desert. Dash. 17. Therefore thus saith the Lord, thy wife shall play the harlot in the city, and thy sons and thy daughters shall fall by the sword, and thy land shall be measured by a line, and thou shalt die in a polluted land, and Israel shall go into captivity out of their land. 11 Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, and I will send forth a famine into the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst of water, but of hearing the word of the Lord. 12 And they shall move from sea to sea, and from the north to the east, they shall go about, seeking the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. 8 Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from the face of the earth, but yet I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith the Lord. 9 For behold, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, as corn is sifted in a sieve, and there shall not a little stone fall to the ground. 10 All the sinners of my people shall fall by the sword, who say, the evils shall not approach, and shall not come upon us. 11 In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David, that is fallen, and I will close up the breaches of the walls thereof, and repair what was fallen, and I will rebuild it as in the days of old. 12 That they may possess the remnant of Edom, and all nations, because my name is invoked upon them, saith the Lord that doth these things. 13 Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when the ploughman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed. And the mountains shall drop sweetness, and every hill shall be tilled. 14 And I will bring back the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build the abandoned cities, and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards, and drink the wine of them, and shall make gardens, and eat the fruits of them. And I will plant them upon their own land, and I will no more pluck them out of their land which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God. Prophecy of Abdias. Chapter 1. The vision of Abdias. Thus saith the Lord God to Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and he hath sent an ambassador to the nations, arise, and let us rise up to battle against him. 17 And in Mount Zion shall be salvation, and it shall be holy, and the house of Jacob shall possess those that possess them. 18 And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau stubble, and they shall be kindled in them, and shall devour them, and there shall be no remains of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. 19 And they that are toward the south, shall inherit the mount of Esau, and they that are in the plains, the Philistines, and they shall possess the country of Ephraim, and the country of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Galad. 20 And the captivity of this host of the children of Israel, all the places of the Canaanites, even to Sarepta, and the captivity of Jerusalem, that is in Bosphorus, shall possess the cities of the south. 21 And saviors shall come up into Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be for the Lord. Prophecy of Jonas. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonas, the son of Amittai, saying, to arise and go to Nineveh, the great city, and preach in it, for the wickedness thereof is come up before me. 15 And they took Jonas, and cast him into the sea, and the sea ceased from raging. 16 And the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and sacrificed victims to the Lord, and made vows. Now the Lord prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonas, and Jonas was in the belly of a fish for 3 days and 3 nights. 11 And the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited out Jonas upon the dry land. And the word of the Lord came to Jonas the second time, saying, to arise, and go to Nineveh, the great city, and preach in it the preaching that I bid thee. 4 And Jonas began to enter into the city 1 day's journey, and he cried and said, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be destroyed. 10 But God saw their works, that they were turned from their evil way, and God had mercy with regard to the evil which he had said that he would do to them, and he did it not. And Jonas was exceedingly troubled, and was angry. 2 And he prayed to the Lord, and said, I beseech thee, O Lord, is not this what I said, when I was yet in my own country? Therefore I went before to flee into Tharsus, for I know that thou art a gracious and merciful God, patient, and of much compassion, and easy to forgive evil. 3 And now, O Lord, I beseech thee, take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. 4 And the Lord said, dost thou think thou hast reason to be angry? 5 Then Jonas went out of the city, and sat toward the east side of the city, and he made himself a booth there, and he sat under it in the shadow, till he might see what would befall the city. 6 And the Lord God prepared an ivy, and it came up over the head of Jonas, to be a shadow over his head, and to cover him, for he was fatigued, and Jonas was exceeding glad of the ivy. 7 But God prepared a worm, when the morning arose on the following day, and it struck the ivy, and it withered. 8 And when the sun was risen, the Lord commanded a hot and burning wind, and the sun beat upon the head of Jonas, and he broiled with the heat, and he desired for his soul that he might die, and said, It is better for me to die than to live. 9 And the Lord said to Jonas, Dost thou think thou hast reason to be angry for the ivy? And he said, I am angry with reason even unto death. 10 And the Lord said, Thou art grieved for the ivy, for which thou hast not labored, nor made it to grow, which in one night came up, and in one night perished. 11 And shall I not spare Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 persons, that know how to distinguish between their right hand and their left, and many beasts? Prophecy of Micheas. The word of the Lord, that came to Micheas, the Morasthite, in the days of Jotham, Achaz, and Ezekias, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. 3 For behold, the Lord will come forth out of his place, and he will come down, and will tread upon the high places of the earth. 12 I will assemble and gather together all of thee, O Jacob, I will bring together the remnant of Israel, I will put them together as a flock in the fold, as sheep in the midst of the sheepcotes, they shall make a tumult by reason of the multitude of men. 13 For he shall go up that shall open the way before them, they shall divide and pass through the gate, and shall come in by it, and their king shall pass before them, and the Lord at the head of them. 8 But yet I am filled with the strength of the Spirit of the Lord, with judgment and power, to declare unto Jacob his wickedness, and to Israel his sin. 11 Her princes have judged for bribes, and her priests have taught for hire, and her prophets divined for money, and they leaned upon the Lord, saying, Is not the Lord in the midst of us? No evil shall come among us. 12 Therefore because of you, Zion shall be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall be as a heap of stones, and the mountain of the temple as the high places of the forests. And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be prepared in the top of the mountains, and high above the hills, and people shall flow to it. 2 And many nations shall come in haste, and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths, for the law shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. 3 And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into spades. Nation shall not take sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. 5 Believe not a friend, and trust not in a prince, keep the doors of thy mouth from her that sleepeth in thy bosom. 6 For the son dishonoureth the father, and the daughter riseth up against her mother, the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies are they of his own household. 14 Feed thy people with thy rod, the flock of thy inheritance, them that dwell alone in the forest, in the midst of Carmel, they shall feed in Bazan and Galad, according to the days of old. 18 Who is a God like to thee, who takest away iniquity, and passest by the sin of the remnant of thy inheritance? He will send his fury in no more, because he delighteth in mercy. 19 He will turn again, and have mercy on us. He will put away our iniquities, and he will cast all our sins into the bottom of the sea. 20 Thou wilt perform the truth to Jacob, the mercy to Abraham, which thou hast sworn to our fathers from the days of old. Prophecy of Nahum. The burden of Nineveh. The book of the vision of Nahum, the Elsasite. 2 The Lord is a jealous God, and a revenger. The Lord is a revenger, and hath wrath. The Lord taketh vengeance on his adversaries, and he is angry with his enemies. 3 The Lord is patient, and great in power, and will not cleanse and acquit the guilty. The Lord's ways are in a tempest, and a whirlwind, and clouds are the dust of his feet. 7 The Lord is good, and giveth strength in the day of trouble, and knoweth them that hope in him. 8 But with a flood that passeth by, he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. 13 Behold, I come against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will burn thy chariots even to smoke, and the sword shall devour thy young lions, and I will cut off thy prey out of the land. And the voice of thy messengers shall be heard no more. 5 Behold, I come against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy shame to thy face, and will shew thy nakedness to the nations, and thy shame to kingdoms. 6 And I will cast abominations upon thee, and will disgrace thee, and will make an example of thee. 18 Thy shepherds have slumbered, O king of Assyria, thy princes shall be buried, thy people are hid in the mountains, and there is none to gather them. 19 Thy destruction is not hidden, thy wound is grievous, all that have heard the fame of thee have clapped their hands over thee, for upon whom hath not thy wickedness passed continually? Prophecy of Habakkuk. The burden that Habakkuk the prophet saw. 13 Thy eyes are too pure to behold evil, and thou canst not look on iniquity. Why lookest thou upon them that do unjust things, and holdest thy peace when the wicked devoureth the man that is more just than himself? 15 Woe to him that giveth drink to his friend, and presenteth his gall, and maketh him drunk, that he may behold his nakedness. Prophecy of Sophonias. The word of the Lord that came to Sophonias, in the days of Josias, the son of Ammon king of Judah. 3 I will gather man, and beast, I will gather the birds of the air, and the fishes of the sea. And the ungodly shall meet with ruin, and I will destroy men from off the face of the land, saith the Lord. 4 And I will stretch out my hand upon Judah, and upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will destroy out of this place the remnant of Baal, and the names of the wardens of the temples with the priests. 3 Seek the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, you that have wrought his judgment, seek the just. Seek the meek, if by any means you may be hid in the day of the Lord's indignation. 6 I have destroyed the nations, and their towers are beaten down, I have made their ways desert, so that there is none that passeth by. Their cities are desolate, there is not a man remaining, nor any inhabitant. 8 Wherefore expect me, saith the Lord, in the day of my resurrection that is to come, for my judgment is to assemble the Gentiles, and to gather the kingdoms, and to pour upon them my indignation, all my fierce anger, for with the fire of my jealousy shall all the earth be devoured. 9 Because then I will restore to the people a chosen lip, that all may call upon the name of the Lord, and may serve him with one shoulder. 11 In that day thou shalt not be ashamed for all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me, for then I will take away out of the midst of thee thy proud boasters, and thou shalt no more be lifted up because of my holy mountain. 12 And I will leave in the midst of thee a poor and needy people, and they shall hope in the name of the Lord. Prophecy of Amos. In the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, the word of the Lord came by the hand of Amos the prophet, to Zerubbabel the son of Salatiel, governor of Judah, and to Jesus the son of Josdek, the high priest, saying, 2 Thus saith the Lord of hosts, saying, This people saith, the time is not yet come for building the house of the Lord. 6 You have sowed much, and brought in little. You have eaten, but have not had enough, you have drunk, but have not been filled with drink. You have clothed yourselves, but have not been warmed, and he that hath earned wages, put them into a bag with holes. 8 And I will move all nations, and the desired of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. 10 Great shall be the glory of this last house, more than of the first, saith the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. 23 And I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and will destroy the strength of the kingdom of the Gentiles, and I will overthrow the chariot, and him that rideth therein, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. 24 In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, I will take thee, O Zerubbabel the son of Salatiel, my servant, saith the Lord, and will make thee as a signet, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord of hosts. Prophecy of Zacharias. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of King Darius, the word of the Lord came to Zacharias saying, 2 The Lord hath been exceeding angry with your fathers. 3 And thou shalt say to them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Turn ye to me, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will turn to you, saith the Lord of hosts. 4 Be not as your fathers, to whom the former prophets have cried, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Turn ye from your evil ways, and from your wicked thoughts, but they did not give ear. Neither did they hearken to me, saith the Lord. And the Lord shewed me Jesus the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan stood on his right hand to be his adversary. 2 And the Lord said to Satan, The Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, and the Lord that chose Jerusalem rebuke thee, is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? 3 And Jesus was clothed with filthy garments. And he stood before the face of the angel. 4 Who answered, and said to them that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And he said to him, Behold, I have taken away thy iniquity, and have clothed thee with change of garments. 5 And he said, Put a clean mitre upon his head, and they put a clean mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments, and the angel of the Lord stood. 6 And the angel of the Lord protested to Jesus, saying, 7 Thus saith the Lord of hosts, If thou wilt walk in my ways, and keep my charge, thou also shalt judge my house, and shalt keep my courts. And I will give thee some of them that are now present here to walk with thee. 8 Hear, O Jesus thou high priest, thou and thy friends that dwell before thee, for they are portending men, for behold, I will bring my servant the Orient. 9 For behold the stone that I have laid before Jesus, upon one stone there are 7 eyes, behold I will grave the graving thereof, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will take away the iniquity of that land in one day. And the angel that spoke in me came again, and he waked me, as a man that is wakened out of his sleep. 2 And he said to me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold a candlestick all of gold, and its lamp upon the top of it, and the 7 lights thereof upon it, and 7 funnels for the lights that were upon the top thereof. 3 And 2 olive trees over it, one upon the right side of the lamp, and the other upon the left side thereof. 4 And I answered, and said to the angel that spoke in me, saying, What are these things, my Lord? 5 And the angel that spoke in me answered, and said to me, Knowest thou not what these things are? And I said, No, my Lord. 6 And he answered, and spoke to me, saying, This is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, saying, Not with an army, nor by might, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. 8 And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, 9 The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundations of this house, and his hands shall finish it, and you shall know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me to you. 10 For who hath despised little days? And they shall rejoice, and shall see the tin plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the 7 eyes of the Lord, that run to and fro through the whole earth. 11 And I answered, and said to him, What are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick, and upon the left side thereof? 12 And I answered again, and said to him, What are the 2 olive branches, that are by the 2 golden beaks, in which are the funnels of gold? 13 And he spoke to me, saying, Knowest thou not what these are? And I said, No, my Lord. 14 And he said, These are 2 sons of oil who stand before the Lord of the whole earth. And I turned, and lifted up my eyes, and saw. And behold 4 chariots came out from the midst of 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. 2 In the first chariot were red horses, and in the second chariot black horses. 3 And in the third chariot white horses, and in the fourth chariot grizzled horses, and strong ones. 4 And I answered, and said to the angel that spoke in me, What are these, my Lord? 5 And the angel answered, and said to me, These are the 4 winds of the heaven, which go forth to stand before the Lord of all the earth. 6 That in which were the black horses went forth into the land of the north, and the white went forth after them, and the grizzled went forth to the land of south. 7 And they that were most strong went out, and sought to go, and to run to and fro through all the earth. And he said, Go, walk throughout the earth, and they walked throughout the earth. And it came to pass in the 4th year of King Darius, that the word of the Lord came to Zacharias, in the 4th day of the 9th month, which is Casleu. 3. To speak to the priests of the house of the Lord of hosts, and to the prophets, saying, Must I weep in the 5th month, or must I sanctify myself as I have now done for many years? 4. And the word of the Lord of hosts came to me, saying, 5. Speak to all the people of the land, and to the priests, saying, When you fasted, and mourned in the 5th and the 7th month for these 70 years, did you keep a fast unto me? 6. And when you did eat and drink, did you not eat for yourselves, and drink for yourselves? 9. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, saying, Judge ye true judgment, and shew ye mercy and compassion every man to his brother. 10. And oppress not the widow, and the fatherless, and the stranger, and the poor, and let not a man devise evil in his heart against his brother. 11. But they would not hearken, and they turned away the shoulder to depart, and they stopped their ears, not to hear. 10. And I took my rod that was called beauty, and I cut it asunder to make void my covenant, which I had made with all people. 2. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will destroy the names of idols out of the earth, and they shall be remembered no more, and I will take away the false prophets, and the unclean spirit out of the earth. 3. And it shall come to pass, that when any man shall prophesy any more, his father and his mother that brought him into the world, shall say to him, Thou shalt not live, because thou hast spoken a lie in the name of the Lord. And his father, and his mother, his parents, shall thrust him through, when he shall prophesy. 17. And it shall come to pass, that he that shall not go up of the families of the land to Jerusalem, to adore the King, the Lord of hosts, there shall be no rain upon them. 18. And if the family of Egypt go not up, nor come, neither shall it be upon them, but there shall be destruction wherewith the Lord will strike all nations that will not go up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. 19. This shall be the sin of Egypt, and this the sin of all nations, that will not go up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. 20. In that day that which is upon the bridle of the horse shall be holy to the Lord, and the cauldrons in the house of the Lord shall be as the files before the altar. 21. And every cauldron in Jerusalem and Judah shall be sanctified to the Lord of hosts, and all that sacrifice shall come, and take of them, and shall seethe in them, and the merchant shall be no more in the house of the Lord of hosts in that day. Prophecy of Malachias. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by the hand of Malachias. 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord, and you have said, Wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau brother to Jacob, saith the Lord, and I have loved Jacob. 3. But have hated Esau, and I have made his mountains a wilderness, and given his inheritance to the dragons of the desert. 4. But if Edom shall say, We are destroyed, but we will return and build up what hath been destroyed, thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build up, and I will throw down, and they shall be called the borders of wickedness, and the people with whom the Lord is angry forever. 14. Cursed is the deceitful man that hath in his flock a male, and making a vow offereth in sacrifice that which is feeble to the Lord, for I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the Gentiles. And now, O ye priests, this commandment is to you. 2. If you will not hear, and if you will not lay it to heart, to give glory to my name, saith the Lord of hosts, I will send poverty upon you, and will curse your blessings, yet I will curse them, because you have not laid it to heart. 14. And you have said, For what cause? Because the Lord hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, whom thou hast despised, yet she was thy partner, and the wife of thy covenant. 15. Did not one make her, and she is the residue of his spirit? And what doth one seek but the seed of God? Keep then your spirit, and despise not the wife of thy youth. 16. When thou shalt hate her, put her away, saith the Lord, the God of Israel, but iniquity shalt cover his garment, saith the Lord of hosts. Keep your spirit, and despise not. 17. You have wearied the Lord with your words, and you said, Wherein have we wearied him? In that you say, Every one that doth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and such please him, or surely where is the God of judgment? 15 Wherefore now we call the proud people happy, for they that work wickedness are built up, and they have tempted God and are preserved. 16 Then they that feared the Lord, spoke every one with his neighbor, and the Lord gave ear, and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that fear the Lord, and think on his name. 17 And they shall be my special possession, saith the Lord of hosts, in the day that I do judgment, and I will spare them, as a man spareth his son that serveth him. 18 And you shall return, and shall see the difference between the just and the wicked, and between him that serveth God, and him that serveth him not. For behold the day shall come kindled as a furnace, and all the proud, and all that do wickedly, shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall set them on fire, saith the Lord of hosts, it shall not leave them root, nor branch. 2 But unto you that fear my name, the Son of Justice shall arise, and health in his wings, and you shall go forth, and shall leap like calves of the herd. 3 And you shall tread down the wicked when they shall be ashes under the sole of your feet in the day that I do this, saith the Lord of hosts. 4 Remember the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel, the precepts, and judgments. 5 Behold, I will send you Elias the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. 6 And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come, and strike the earth with anathema. First Book of Maccabees. Now it came to pass, after that Alexander the son of Philip the Macedonian, who first reigned in Greece, coming out of the land of Sethim, had overthrown Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. 2 He fought many battles, and took the strong holds of all, and slew the kings of the earth. 3 And he went through even to the ends of the earth, and took the spoils of many nations, and the earth was quiet before him. 4 And he gathered a power, and a very strong army, and his heart was exalted and lifted up. 6 And after these things, he fell down upon his bed, and knew that he should die. 7 And he called his servants, the nobles that were brought up with him from his youth, and he divided his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. 9 And his servants made themselves kings, every one in his place. 10 And they all put crowns upon themselves after his death, and their sons after them, many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. 17 And the kingdom was established before Antiochus, and he had a mind to reign over the land of Egypt, that he might reign over 2 kingdoms. 18 And he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots, and elephants, and horsemen, and a great number of ships. 19 And he made war against Ptolemy king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid at his presence, and fled, and many were wounded unto death. 20 And he took the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils of the land of Egypt. 21 And after Antiochus had ravaged Egypt, in the 143rd year, he returned, and went up against Israel. 22 And he went up to Jerusalem, with a great multitude. 23 And he proudly entered into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of proposition, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the little mortars of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornament that was before the temple, and he broke them all in pieces. 24 And he took the silver and gold, and the precious vessels, and he took the hidden treasures, which he found, and when he had taken all away, he departed into his own country. 33 And he took the spoils of the city, and burned it with fire, and threw down the houses thereof, and the walls thereof round about. 35 And they built the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with strong towers, and made it a fortress for them. 36 And they placed there a sinful nation, wicked men, and they fortified themselves therein, and they stored up armor, and victuals, and gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem. 37 And laid them up there, and they became a great snare. 40 And the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled away by reason of them, and the city was made the habitation of strangers, and she became a stranger to her own seed, and her children forsook her. 50 And he commanded altars to be built, and temples, and idols, and swine's flesh to be immolated, and unclean beasts. 51 And that they should leave their children uncircumcised, and let their souls be defiled with all uncleannesses, and abominations, to the end that they should forget the law, and should change all the justifications of God. 65 And many of the people of Israel determined with themselves, that they would not eat unclean things, and they chose rather to die than to be defiled with unclean meats. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib, from Jerusalem, and he abode in the mountain of Modin. 7 And Mattathias said, Woe is me, wherefore was I born to see the ruin of my people, and the ruin of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it is given into the hands of the enemies. 8 The holy places are come into the hands of strangers, her temple is become as a man without honor. 17 And they that were sent from Antiochus, answering, said to Mattathias, Thou art a ruler, and an honorable, and great man in the city, and adorned with sons, and brethren. 18 Therefore, come thou first, and obey the king's commandment, as all nations have done. And the men of Judah, and they that remain in Jerusalem, and thou, and thy sons shall be in the number of the king's friends, and enriched with gold, and silver, and many presents. 19 Then Mattathias answered, and said with a loud voice, Although all nations obey King Antiochus, so as to depart every man from the service of the law of his fathers, and consent to his commandments. 20 I and my sons, and my brethren will obey the law of our fathers. 21 God be merciful unto us, it is not profitable for us to forsake the law, and the justices of God. 22 We will not hearken to the words of King Antiochus, neither will we sacrifice and transgress the commandments of our law, to go another way. 23 Now as he left off speaking these words, there came a certain Jew in the sight of all to sacrifice to the idols upon the altar in the city of Modin, according to the king's commandment. 24 And Mattathias saw, and was grieved, and his reins trembled, and his wrath was kindled according to the judgment of the law, and running upon him he slew him upon the altar. 25 Moreover the man whom King Antiochus had sent, who compelled them to sacrifice, he slew at the same time, and pulled down the altar. 26 And shewed zeal for the law, as Phinehas did by Zamri, the son of Salami. 28 So he and his sons fled into the mountains, and left all that they had in the city. 29 Then many that sought after judgment and justice, went down into the desert. 30 And they abode there, they and their children, and their wives, and their cattle, because afflictions increased upon them. 31 And it was told to the king's men, and to the army that was in Jerusalem, in the city of David, that certain men, who had broken the king's commandment, were gone away into the secret places in the wilderness, and that many were gone after them. 32 And forthwith they went out towards them, and made war against them on the Sabbath day. 33 And they said to them, Do you still resist? Come forth, and do according to the edict of King Antiochus, and you shall live. 34 And they said, We will not come forth, neither will we obey the king's edict, to profane the Sabbath day. 35 And they made haste to give them battle. 36 But they answered them not, neither did they cast a stone at them, nor stopped up the secret places. 37 Saying, Let us all die in our innocency, and heaven and earth shall be witnesses for us, that you put us to death wrongfully. 38 So they gave them battle on the Sabbath, and they were slain, with their wives, and their children, and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 persons. 39 And Mattathias and his friends heard of it, and they mourned for them exceedingly. 41 And they determined in that day, saying, Whosoever shall come up against us to fight on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him, and we will not all die, as our brethren that were slain in the secret places. 45 And Mattathias and his friends went round about, and they threw down the altars. 46 And they circumcised all the children, whom they found in the confines of Israel that were uncircumcised, and they did valiantly. 49 Now the days drew near that Mattathias should die, and he said to his sons, Now hath pride and chastisement gotten strength, and the time of destruction, and the wrath of indignation. 50 Now, therefore, O my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. 51 And call to remembrance the works of the fathers, which they have done in their generations, and you shall receive great glory, and an everlasting name. 52 Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was reputed to him unto justice? 53 Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment, and he was made Lord of Egypt. 54 Phinehas, our father, by being fervent in the zeal of God, received the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. 55 Jesus, whilst he fulfilled the word, was made ruler in Israel. 56 Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received an inheritance. 57 David, by his mercy, obtained the throne of an everlasting kingdom. 58 Elias, while he is full of zeal for the law, was taken up into heaven. 59 Ananias and Azarias and Misael, by believing, were delivered out of the flame. 60 Daniel, in his innocency, was delivered out of the mouth of the lions. 61 And thus consider, through all generations, that none that trust in him, fail in strength. 62 And fear not the words of a sinful man, for his glory is dung and worms. 63 Today he is lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned into his earth and his thought is come to nothing. 64 You, therefore, my sons, take courage, and behave manfully in the law, for by it you shall be glorious. 65 And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel, give ear to him always, and he shall be a father to you. 66 And Judas Maccabeus, who is valiant and strong from his youth up, let him be the leader of your army, and he shall manage the war of the people. 67 And you shall take to you all that observe the law, and revenge ye the wrong of your people. 68 Render to the Gentiles their reward, and take heed to the precepts of the law. 70 And he died in the 146th year, and he was buried by his sons in the sepulchres of his fathers in Modin, and all Israel mourned for him with great mourning. Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead. 2 And all his brethren helped him, and all they that had joined themselves to his father. And they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel. 13 And Saran, captain of the army of Syria, heard that Judas had assembled a company of the faithful, and a congregation with him. 14 And he said, I will get me a name, and will be glorified in the kingdom, and will overthrow Judas, and those that are with him, that have despised the edict of the king. 18 And Judas said, It is an easy matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and there is no difference in the sight of the God of heaven to deliver with a great multitude, or with a small company. 19 For the success of war is not in the multitude of the army, but strength cometh from heaven. 20 They come against us with an insolent multitude, and with pride, to destroy us, and our wives, and our children, and to take our spoils. 21 But we will fight for our lives, and our laws. 22 And the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face, but as for you, fear them not. 24 And he pursued him by the descent of Bethoron, even to the plain, and there fell of them 800 men, and the rest fled into the land of the Philistines. 5 And Gorgias came by night into the camp of Judas, and found no man, and he sought them in the mountains, for he said, These men flee from us. 6 And when it was day, Judas shewed himself in the plain with 3,000 men only, who neither had armor nor swords. 8 And Judas said to the men that were with him, Fear ye not their multitude, neither be yet afraid of their assault. 10 And now let us cry to heaven, and the Lord will have mercy on us, and will remember the covenant of our fathers, and will destroy this army before our face this day. 15 But all the hindmost of them fell by the sword, and they pursued them as far as Gazeran, and even to the plains of Idumea, and of Azotus, and of Jamnia, and there fell of them to the number of 3,000 men. 16 And Judas returned again with his army that followed him. 28 So the year following, Lysias gathered together 70,000 chosen men, and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. 29 And they came into Judea, and pitched their tents in Bethoron, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. 34 And they joined battle, and there fell of the army of Lysias 5,000 men. 35 And when Lysias saw that his men were put to flight, and how bold the Jews were, and that they were ready either to live, or to die manfully, he went to Antioch, and chose soldiers, that they might come again into Judea with greater numbers. 36 Then Judas, and his brethren said, Behold, our enemies are discomfited, let us go up now to cleanse the holy places, and to repair them. 37 And all the army assembled together, and they went up into Mount Zion. 41 Then Judas appointed men to fight against them that were in the castle, till they had cleansed the holy places. 42 And he chose priests without blemish, whose will was set upon the law of God. 43 And they cleansed the holy places, and took away the stones that had been defiled into an unclean place. 60 They built up also at that time Mount Zion, with high walls, and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should at any time come and tread it down, as they did before. Now it came to pass, when the nations round about heard that the altar and the sanctuary were built up, as before, that they were exceeding angry. 2 And they thought to destroy the generation of Jacob that were among them, and they began to kill some of the people, and to persecute them. 15 Saying, that they of Ptolemy, and of Tyre, and of Sidon, were assembled against them, and all Galilee is filled with strangers, in order to consume us. 17 And Judah said to Simon, his brother, choose thee men, and go, and deliver thy brethren in Galilee, and I, and my brother Jonathan, will go into the country of Gilead. 18 And he left Joseph, the son of Zacharias, and Azarias, captains of the people, with the remnant of the army in Judea, to keep it. 19 And he commanded them, saying, Take ye the charge of this people, but make no war against the heathens, till we return. 20 Now 3,000 men were allotted to Simon, to go into Galilee, and 8,000 to Judas, to go into the land of Gilead. 21 And Simon went into Galilee, and fought many battles with the heathens, and the heathens were discomfited before his face, and he pursued them even to the gate of Ptolemy. 22 And there fell of the heathens almost 3,000 men, and he took the spoils of them. 24 And Judas Maccabeus, and Jonathan, his brother, passed over the Jordan, and went 3 days' journey through the desert. 35 And Judas turned aside to Maspha, and assaulted, and took it, and he slew every male thereof, and took the spoils thereof, and burnt it with fire. 36 From thence he marched, and took Caspon, and Majet, and Bozrah, and the rest of the cities of Gilead. 37 But after this Timotheus gathered another army, and camped over against Raphon, beyond the torrent. 40 And Timotheus said to the captains of his army, when Judas and his army come near the torrent of water, if he pass over unto us first, we shall not be able to withstand him, for he will certainly prevail over us. 41 But if he be afraid to pass over, and camp on the other side of the river, we will pass over to them, and shall prevail against him. 42 Now when Judas came near the torrent of water, he set the scribes of the people by the torrent, and commanded them, saying, Suffer no man to stay behind, but let all come to the battle. 43 And he passed over to them first, and all the people after him, and all the heathens were discomfited before them, and they threw away their weapons, and fled to the temple that was in Carnaim. 44 And he took that city, and the temple he burnt with fire, with all things that were therein. And Carnaim was subdued, and could not stand against the face of Judas. 55 Now in the days that Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Gilead, and Simon his brother in Galilee, before Ptolemy. 56 Joseph, the son of Zacharias, and Azarias, captain of the soldiers, heard of the good success and the battles that were fought. 57 And he said, Let us also get us a name, and let us go fight against the Gentiles that are round about us. 58 And he gave charge to them that were in his army, and they went towards Jamnia. 59 And Gorgias and his men went out of the city, to give them battle. 60 And Joseph and Azarias were put to flight, and were pursued unto the borders of Judea, and there fell on that day, of the people of Israel, about 2,000 men, and there was a great overthrow of the people. 61 Because they did not hearken to Judas and his brethren, thinking that they should do manfully. 62 But they were not of the seed of those men, by whom salvation was brought to Israel. 63 And the men of Judah were magnified exceedingly in the sight of all Israel, and of all the nations where their name was heard. 64 And the people assembled to them with joyful acclamations. 65 Then Judas and his brethren went forth, and attacked the children of Esau, in the land towards the south, and he took Chebron and her towns, and he burnt the walls thereof, and the towers all round it. Now King Antiochus was going through the higher countries, and he heard that the city of Elima in Persia was greatly renowned, and abounding in silver and gold. 3 So he came, and sought to take the city and to pillage it, but he was not able, because the design was known to them that were in the city. 4 And they rose up against him in battle, and he fled away from thence, and departed with great sadness, and returned towards Babylonia. 11 And I said in my heart, into how much tribulation am I come, and into what floods of sorrow wherein now I am, I that was pleasant and beloved in my power. 12 But now I remember the evils that I did in Jerusalem, from whence also I took away all the spoils of gold, and of silver, that were in it, and I sent to destroy the inhabitants of Judah without cause. 13 I know, therefore, that for this cause these evils have found me, and behold I perish with great grief in a strange land. 14 Then he called Philip, one of his friends, and he made him regent over all his kingdom. 32 And Judas departed from the castle, and removed the camp to Beth Zaccharum, over against the king's camp. 33 And the king rose before it was light, and made his troops march on fiercely towards the way of Beth Zaccharum, and the armies made themselves ready for the battle, and they sounded the trumpets. 42 And Judas and his army drew near for battle, and there fell of the king's army 600 men. 47 Then they, seeing the strength of the king, and the fierceness of his army, turned away from them. 48 But the king's army went up against them to Jerusalem, and the king's army pitched their tents against Judea and Mount Zion. 49 And he made peace with them that were in Bethsura, and they came forth out of the city, because they had no victuals, being shut up there, for it was the year of rest to the land. 50 And the king took Bethsura, and he placed there a garrison to keep it. 55 Now Lysias heard that Philip, whom King Antiochus while he lived had appointed to bring up his son Antiochus, and to reign. 56 Was returned from Persia, and Media, with the army that went with him, and that he sought to take upon him the affairs of the kingdom. 57 Wherefore he made haste to go, and say to the king and to the captains of the army, We decay daily, and our provision of victuals is small. And the place that we lay siege to is strong, and it layeth upon us to take order for the affairs of the kingdom. 58 Now, therefore, let us come to an agreement with these men, and make peace with them, and with all their nation. 60 And the proposal was acceptable in the sight of the king, and of the princes, and he sent to them to make peace, and they accepted of it. 61 And the king and the princes swore to them, and they came out of the stronghold. 62 Then the king entered into Mount Zion, and saw the strength of the place, and he quickly broke the oath that he had taken, and gave commandment to throw down the wall round about. 63 And he departed in haste and returned to Antioch, where he found Philip master of the city, and he fought against him, and took the city. In the 151st year, Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, departed from the city of Rome, and came up with few men into a city of the sea coast, and reigned there. 5 And there came to him the wicked and ungodly men of Israel, and Alcimus was at the head of them, who desired to be made high priest. 6 And they accused the people to the king, saying, Judas and his brethren have destroyed all thy friends, and he hath driven us out of our land. 7 Now, therefore, send some men whom thou trustest, and let him go, and see all the havoc he hath made amongst us, and in the king's lands, and let him punish all his friends and their helpers. 8 Then the king chose Bacchides, one of his friends, that ruled beyond the great river in the kingdom, and was faithful to the king, and he sent him. 22 And they that disturbed the people resorted to him, and they got the land of Judah into their power, and did much hurt in Israel. 23 And Judah saw all the evils that Alcimus, and they that were with him, did to the children of Israel, much more than the Gentiles. 24 And he went out into all the coasts of Judea round about, and took vengeance upon the men that had revolted, and they ceased to go forth any more into the country. 26 And the king sent Nicanor, one of his principal lords, who was a great enemy to Israel, and he commanded him to destroy the people. 27 And Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great army, and he sent to Judas and to his brethren deceitfully, with friendly words. 28 Saying, Let there be no fighting between me and you, I will come with a few men, to see your faces with peace. 29 And he came to Judas, And they saluted one another peaceably, and the enemies were prepared to take away Judas by force. 30 And the thing was known to Judas that he was come to him with deceit, and he was much afraid of him, and would not see his face any more. 31 And Nicanor knew that his counsel was discovered, and he went out to fight against Judas near Kaphar Salama. 32 And there fell of Nicanor's army almost 5,000 men, and they fled into the city of David. 33 And after this Nicanor went up into Mount Zion, and some of the priests and the people came out to salute him peaceably, and to shew him the holocausts that were offered for the king. 34 But he mocked and despised them, and abused them, and he spoke proudly. 35 And swore in anger, saying, Unless Judas and his army be delivered into my hands, as soon as ever I return in peace, I will burn this house. And he went out in a great rage. 39 Then Nicanor went out from Jerusalem, and encamped near to Bethoron, and an army of Syria joined him. 40 But Judas pitched in Adarsa with 3,000 men, and Judas prayed, and said, 41 O Lord, when they that were sent by King Sennacherib blasphemed thee, an angel went out, and slew of them 185,000. 42 Even so destroy this army in our sight today, and let the rest know that he hath spoken ill against thy sanctuary, and judge thou him according to his wickedness. 43 And the armies joined battle on the 13th day of the month, Adar, and the army of Nicanor was defeated, and he himself was first slain in the battle. 50 And the land of Judah was quiet for a short time. Now Judas heard of the fame of the Romans, that they are powerful and strong, and willingly agree to all things that are requested of them, and that whosoever have come to them, they have made amity with them, and that they are mighty in power. 17 So Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Jacob, and Jason, the son of Eleazar. And he sent them to Rome to make a league of amity and confederacy with them. 18 And that they might take off from them the yoke of the Grecians, for they saw that they oppressed the kingdom of Israel with servitude. 19 And they went to Rome, a very long journey, and they entered into the Senate house, and said, 20 Judas Maccabeus, and his brethren, and the people of the Jews, have sent us to you to make alliance and peace with you, and that we may be registered your confederates and friends. 21 And the proposal was pleasing in their sight. 22 And this is the copy of the writing that they wrote back again, graven in tables of brass, and sent to Jerusalem, that it might be with them there for a memorial of the peace and alliance. 23 Good success be to the Romans, and to the people of the Jews by sea, and by land, forever, and far be the sword and enemy from them. 24 But if there come first any war upon the Romans, or any of their confederates, in all their dominions, 25 The nation of the Jews shall help them, according as the time shall direct, with all their heart. 26 Neither shall they give them, whilst they are fighting, or furnish them with wheat, or arms, or money, or ships, as it hath seemed good to the Romans, and they shall obey their orders, without taking anything of them. 27 In like manner also if war shall come first upon the nation of the Jews, the Romans shall help them with all their heart, according as the time shall permit them. 28 And there shall not be given to them that come to their aid, either wheat, or arms, or money, or ships, as it hath seemed good to the Romans, and they shall observe their orders, without deceit. 29 According to these articles did the Romans covenant with the people of the Jews. 30 And, if after this, one party or the other shall have a mind to add to these articles, or take away anything, they may do it at their pleasure, and whatsoever they shall add, or take away, shall be ratified. 31 Moreover, concerning the evils that Demetrius, the king, hath done against them, we have written to him, saying, Why hast thou made thy yoke heavy upon our friends and allies, the Jews? 32 If, therefore, they come again to us complaining of thee, we will do them justice, and will make war against thee by sea and land. Chapter 9. In the meantime, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his army were fallen in battle, he sent again Bacchides and Alcimus into Judea, and the right wing of his army with them. 6 And they saw the multitude of the army that they were many, and they were seized with great fear, and many withdrew themselves out of the camp, and there remained of them no more than 800 men. 8 Then he said to them that remained, Let us arise, and go against our enemies, if we may be able to fight against them. 9 But they dissuaded him, saying, We shall not be able, but let us save our lives now, and return to our brethren, and then we will fight against them, for we are but few. 10 Then Judas said, God forbid we should do this thing, and flee away from them, but if our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our glory. 11 And the army removed out of the camp, and they stood over against them, and the horsemen were divided into 2 troops, and the slingers, and the archers, went before the army. And they that were in the front were all men of valor. 18 And Judas was slain, and the rest fled away. 19 And Jonathan and Simon took Judas, their brother, and buried him in the sepulchre of their fathers, in the city of Modin. 23 And it came to pass, after the death of Judas, that the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the confines of Israel, and all the workers of iniquity rose up. 24 In those days there was a very great famine, and they and all their country yielded to Bacchides. 25 And Bacchides chose the wicked men, and made them lords of the country. 26 And they sought out, and made diligent search after the friends of Judas, and brought them to Bacchides, and he took vengeance of them, and abused them. 28 And all the friends of Judas came together, and said to Jonathan, 29 Since thy brother Judas died, there is not a man like him to go forth against our enemies, Bacchides, and them that are the enemies of our nation. 30 Now, therefore, we have chosen thee this day to be our prince, and captain, in his stead, to fight our battles. 32 And Bacchides had knowledge of it, and sought to kill him. 37 After this it was told Jonathan, and Simon, his brother, that the children of Jamri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride out of Medaba, the daughter of one of the great princes of Chanaan, with great pomp. 38 And they remembered the blood of John, their brother, and they went up, and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain. 39 And they lifted up their eyes, and saw, and behold a tumult, and great preparation. 40 And they rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and slew them. And there fell many wounded, and the rest fled into the mountains, and they took all their spoils. 43 And Bacchides heard it, and he came on the Sabbath day even to the bank of the Jordan, with a great power. 49 And there fell of Bacchides' side that day 1,000 men, and they returned to Jerusalem. 50 And they built strong cities in Judea, the fortress that was in Jericho, and in Amos, and in Bethoron, and in Bethel, and Tamnata, and Farah, and the Po, with high walls, and gates, and bars. 55 At that time Alcimus was struck, and his works were hindered, and his mouth was stopped, and he was taken with a palsy, so that he could no more speak a word, nor give order concerning his house. 56 And Alcimus died at that time in great torment. 57 And Bacchides saw that Alcimus was dead, and he returned to the king, and the land was quiet for 2 years. 58 And all the wicked held a council, saying, Behold Jonathan, and they that are with him, dwell at ease and without fear. Now, therefore, let us bring Bacchides hither, and he shall take them all in one night. 59 So they went, and gave him counsel. 65 But Jonathan left his brother, Simon, in the city and went forth into the country, and came with a number of men. 66 And struck Odares, and his brethren, and the children of Phazaaron, in their tents, and he began to slay, and to increase in forces. 67 But Simon, and they that were with him, sallied out of the city, and burnt the engines. 68 And they fought against Bacchides, and he was discomfited by them, and they afflicted him exceedingly, for his counsel, and his enterprise was in vain. 70 And Jonathan had knowledge of it, and he sent ambassadors to him to make peace with him, and to restore to him the prisoners. 71 And he accepted it willingly, and did according to his words, and swore that he would do him no harm all the days of his life. 72 And he restored to him the prisoners which he before had taken out of the land of Judah, and he returned, and went away into his own country. And he came no more into their borders. 73 So the sword ceased from Israel, and Jonathan dwelt in Machmas, and Jonathan began there to judge the people, and he destroyed the wicked out of Israel. Now in the 160th year, Alexander, the son of Antiochus, surnamed the Illustrious, came up and took Ptolemy, and they received him, and he reigned there. 10 And Jonathan dwelt in Jerusalem, and began to build, and to repair the city. 57 So Ptolemy went out of Egypt, with Cleopatra his daughter, and he came to Ptolemy, in the 162nd year. 58 And King Alexander met him, and he gave him his daughter, Cleopatra, and he celebrated her marriage at Ptolemy with great glory, after the manner of kings. 59 And King Alexander wrote to Jonathan, that he should come and meet him. 60 And he went honorably to Ptolemy, and he met there the two kings, and he gave them much silver and gold and presents, and he found favor in their sight. 77 And Apollonius heard of it, and he took 3,000 horsemen, and a great army. 78 And he went to Azotus, as one that was making a journey, and immediately he went forth into the plain, because he had a great number of horsemen, and he trusted in them. And Jonathan followed after him to Azotus, and they joined battle. 82 Then Simon drew forth his army, and attacked the legion, for the horsemen were wearied, and they were discomfited by him, and fled. 83 And they that were scattered about the plain fled into Azotus, and went into Beth Dagon, their idol's temple, there to save themselves. 84 But Jonathan set fire to Azotus, and the cities that were round about it, and took the spoils of them and the temple of Dagon, and all them that were fled into it, he burnt with fire. 85 So they that were slain by the sword, with them that were burnt, were almost 8,000 men. 88 And it came to pass, when Alexander the king heard these words, that he honored Jonathan yet more. 89 And he sent him a buckle of gold, as the custom is, to be given to such as are of the royal blood. And he gave him a cairn, and all the borders thereof, in possession. And the king of Egypt gathered together an army, like the sand that lieth upon the seashore, and many ships, and he sought to get the kingdom of Alexander by deceit, and join it to his own kingdom. 2 And he went out into Syria with peaceable words, and they opened to him the cities, and met him, for King Alexander had ordered them to go forth to meet him, because he was his father-in-law. 3 Now when Ptolemy entered into the cities, he put garrisons of soldiers in every city. 5 And they told the king that Jonathan had done these things, to make him odious, but the king held his peace. 8 And King Ptolemy got the dominion of the cities by the seaside, even to Seleucia, and he devised evil designs against Alexander. 13 And Ptolemy entered into Antioch, and set 2 crowns upon his head, that of Egypt, and that of Asia. 15 And when Alexander heard of it, he came to give him battle, and King Ptolemy brought forth his army, and met him with a strong power, and put him to flight. 16 And Alexander fled into Arabia, there to be protected, and King Ptolemy was exalted. 17 And Zabdiel the Arabian took off Alexander's head, and sent it to Ptolemy. 18 And King Ptolemy died the 3rd day after, and they that were in the strongholds were destroyed by them that were within the camp. 19 And Demetrius reigned in the 167th year. 20 In those days Jonathan gathered together them that were in Judea, to take the castle that was in Jerusalem, and they made many engines of war against it. 21 Then some wicked men that hated their own nation, went away to King Demetrius, and told him that Jonathan was besieging the castle. 23 But when Jonathan heard this, he bade them besiege it still, and he chose some of the ancients of Israel, and of the priests, and put himself in danger. 28 And Jonathan requested of the king that he would make Judea free from tribute, and the 3 governments, and Samaria, and the confines thereof, and he promised him 300 talents. 29 And the king consented, and he wrote letters to Jonathan of all these things, to this effect. 67 Then Jonathan and his army encamped by the water of Genessa, and before it was light they were ready in the plain of Ezer. 68 And behold, the army of the strangers met him in the plain, and they laid an ambush for him in the mountains, but he went out against them. 69 And they that lay in ambush rose out of their places, and joined battle. 70 And all that were on Jonathan's side fled, and none was left of them, but Mattathias, the son of Absalom, and Judas, the son of Calphi, chief captain of the army. 72 And Jonathan turned again to them to battle, and he put them to flight, and they fought. 73 And they of his part that fled saw this, and they turned again to him, and they all with him pursued the enemies, even to Cades, to their own camp, and they came even thither. 74 And there fell of the aliens in that day 3,000 men, and Jonathan returned to Jerusalem. And Jonathan saw that the time served him, and he chose certain men, and sent them to Rome, to confirm and to renew the amity with them. 2 And he sent letters to the Spartans, and to other places, according to the same form. 24 Now Jonathan heard that the generals of Demetrius were come again with a greater army than before to fight against him. 25 So he went out from Jerusalem, and met them in the land of Amath, for he gave them no time to enter into his country. 26 And he sent spies into their camp, and they came back, and brought him word that they designed to come upon them in the night. 27 And when the sun was set, Jonathan commanded his men to watch, and to be in arms all night long ready to fight, and he set sentinels round about the camp. 28 And the enemies heard that Jonathan and his men were ready for battle, and they were struck with fear and dread in their heart, and they kindled fires in their camp. 30 And Jonathan pursued after them, but overtook them not, for they had passed the river Eleutheris. 42 Now when Tryphon saw that Jonathan came with a great army, he durst not stretch forth his hand against him. 43 But received him with honor, and commended him to all his friends, and gave him presents, and he commanded his troops to obey him, as himself. 44 And he said to Jonathan, Why hast thou troubled all the people, whereas we have no war? 45 Now, therefore, send them back to their own houses, and choose thee a few men that may be with thee, and come with me to Ptolemy. And I will deliver it to thee, and the rest of the strongholds, and the army, and all that have any charge, and I will return and go away, for this is the cause of my coming. 46 And Jonathan believed him, and did as he said, and sent away his army, and they departed into the land of Judah. 47 But he kept with him 3,000 men, of whom he sent 2,000 into Galilee, and 1,000 went with him. 48 Now as soon as Jonathan entered into Ptolemy, they of Ptolemy shut the gates of the city, and took him, and all them that came in with him they slew with the sword. 49 Then Tryphon sent an army and horsemen into Galilee, and into the great plain, to destroy all Jonathan's company. 50 But they, when they understood that Jonathan, and all that were with him, were taken and slain, encouraged one another, and went out ready for battle. 51 Then they that had come after them, seeing that they stood for their lives, returned back. 52 Whereupon they all came peaceably into the land of Judah, and they bewailed Jonathan and them that had been with him, exceedingly. And Israel mourned with great lamentation. 53 Then all the heathens that were round about them, sought to destroy them. For they said, 54 They have no prince, nor any to help them. Now therefore, let us make war upon them, and take away the memory of them from amongst men. Now Simon heard that Tryphon was gathering together a very great army to invade the land of Judah, and to destroy it. 2 And seeing that the people was in dread and in fear, he went up to Jerusalem, and assembled the people. 6 I will avenge then my nation and the sanctuary, and our children, and wives, for all the heathens are gathered together to destroy us out of mere malice. 7 And the spirit of the people was enkindled as soon as they heard these words. 8 And they answered with a loud voice, saying, Thou art our leader in the place of Judas, and Jonathan, thy brother. 9 Fight thou our battles, and we will do whatsoever thou shalt say to us. 10 So gathering together all the men of war, he made haste to finish all the walls of Jerusalem, and he fortified it round about. 11 And he sent Jonathan, the son of Absalom, and with him a new army, into Jopp, and he cast out them that were in it, and himself remained there. 12 And Tryphon removed from Ptolemy with a great army, to invade the land of Judah. And Jonathan was with him in custody. 13 But Simon pitched in Aduz, over against the plain. 14 And when Tryphon understood that Simon was risen up in the place of his brother Jonathan, and that he meant to join battle with him, he sent messengers to him. 15 Saying, We have detained thy brother Jonathan, for the money that he owed in the king's account, by reason of the affairs which he had the management of 16, but now send 100 talents of silver, and his 2 sons for hostages, that when he is set at liberty he may not revolt from us, and we will release him. 17 Now Simon knew that he spoke deceitfully to him, nevertheless, he ordered the money and the children to be sent, lest he should bring upon himself a great hatred of the people of Israel, who might have said, 18 Because he sent not the money and the children therefore is he lost. 19 So he sent the children and the 100 talents and he lied, and did not let Jonathan go. 20 And after this, Tryphon entered within the country, to destroy it, and they went about by the way that leadeth to Ader, and Simon and his army marched to every place whithersoever they went. 23 And when he approached to Bascama, he slew Jonathan and his sons there. 24 And Tryphon returned, and went into his own country. 31 But Tryphon, when he was upon a journey with the young king, Antiochus, treacherously slew him. 32 And he reigned in his place, and put on the crown of Asia, and brought great evils upon the land. 33 And Simon built up the strongholds of Judea, fortifying them with high towers, and great walls, and gates, and bars, and he stored up victuals in the fortresses. 34 And Simon chose men, and sent to King Demetrius, to the end that he should grant an immunity to the land, for all that Tryphon did was to spoil. 35 And King Demetrius, in answer to this request, wrote a letter in this manner. 36 King Demetrius to Simon, the high priest, and friend of kings, and to the ancients, and to the nation of the Jews, greeting. 37 The golden crown, and the palm, which you sent, we have received, and we are ready to make a firm peace with you, and to write to the king's chief officers to release you the things that we have released. 45 And they that were in the city went up with their wives and children, upon the wall, with their garments rent, and they cried with a loud voice, beseeching Simon to grant them peace. 46 And they said, Deal not with us according to our evil deeds, but according to thy mercy. 47 And Simon being moved, did not destroy them, but yet he cast them out of the city, and cleansed the houses wherein there had been idols. And then he entered into it with hymns, blessing the Lord. 48 And having cast out of it all uncleanness, he placed in it men that should observe the law. And he fortified it, and made it his habitation. 51 And they entered into it the 23rd day of the 2nd month, in the year 171, with thanksgiving, and branches of palm trees, and harps, and cymbals, and psalteries, and hymns, and canticles, because the great enemy was destroyed out of Israel. 54 And Simon saw that John, his son, was a valiant man for war, and he made him captain of all the forces, and he dwelt in Gezerah. In the year 172 King Demetrius assembled his army, and went into Media to get him succor to fight against Tryphon. 2 And Arsaces, the king of Persia and Media, heard that Demetrius was entered within his borders, and he sent one of his princes to take him alive, and bring him to him. 3 And he went, and defeated the army of Demetrius, and took him, and brought him to Arsaces, and he put him into custody. 4 And all the land of Judah was at rest all the days of Simon, and he sought the good of his nation, and his power, and his glory pleased them well all his days. 11 He made peace in the land, and Israel rejoiced with great joy. 16 And it was heard at Rome, and as far as Sparta, that Jonathan was dead, and they were very sorry. 17 But when they heard that Simon, his brother, was made high priest in his place, and was possessed of all the country, and the cities therein. 18 They wrote to him in tables of brass, to renew the friendship and alliance which they had made with Judas and with Jonathan, his brethren. 24 And after this Simon sent new news to Rome, with a great shield of gold, of the weight of 1,000 pounds, to confirm the league with them. And King Antiochus, the son of Demetrius, sent letters from the isles of the sea to Simon, the priest, and prince of the nation of the Jews, and to all the people. 2 And the contents were these: King Antiochus to Simon, the high priest, and to the nation of the Jews, greeting. 3 Forasmuch as certain pestilent men have usurped the kingdom of our fathers, and my purpose is to challenge the kingdom, and to restore it to its former estate, and I have chosen a great army, and have built ships of war. 17 The ambassadors of the Jews, our friends, came to us, to renew the former friendship and alliance, being sent from Simon, the high priest, and the people of the Jews. 25 But King Antiochus moved his camp to Dora the second time, assaulting it continually, and making engines, and he shut up Tryphon, that he could not go out. 26 And Simon sent to him 2,000 chosen men to aid him, silver also, and gold, and abundance of furniture. 27 And he would not receive them, but broke all the covenant that he had made with him before, and alienated himself from him. 28 And he sent to him Athenobius, one of his friends, to treat with him, saying, You hold Joppa and Gizera, and the castle that is in Jerusalem, which are cities of my kingdom. 30 Now, therefore, deliver up the cities that you have taken, and the tributes of the places whereof you have gotten the dominion without the borders of Judea. 31 But if not, give me for them 500 talents of silver, and for the havoc that you have made, and the tributes of the cities, other 500 talents, or else we will come and fight against you. 32 So Athenobius, the king's friend, came to Jerusalem, and saw the glory of Simon and his magnificence in gold and silver and his great equipage, and he was astonished, and told him the king's words. 33 And Simon answered him, and said to him, We have neither taken other men's land, neither do we hold that which is other men's, but the inheritance of our fathers, which was for some time unjustly possessed by our enemies. 34 But we having opportunity, claim the inheritance of our fathers. 35 And as to thy complaints concerning Joppa and Gizera, they did great harm to the people and to our country, yet for these we will give 100 talents. And Athenobius answered him not a word. 36 But returning in a rage to the king, made report to him of these words, and of the glory of Simon, and of all that he had seen, and the king was exceeding angry. 37 And Tryphon fled away by ship to Orthosius. 38 And the king appointed Sendebius captain of the sea coast, and gave him an army of footmen and horsemen. 39 And he commanded him to march with his army towards Judea, and he commanded him to build up Gedor, and to fortify the gates of the city, and to war against the people. But the king himself pursued after Tryphon. 40 And Sendebius came to Jamnia, and began to provoke the people, and to ravage Judea, and to take the people prisoners, and to kill, and to build Gedor. 41 And he placed their horsemen, and an army, that they might issue forth, and make incursions upon the ways of Judea, as the king had commanded him. Then John came up from Gizera, and told Simon, his father, what Sendebius had done against their people. 2 And Simon called his 2 eldest sons, Judas and John, and said to them, I and my brethren, and my father's house, have fought against the enemies of Israel from our youth even to this day. And things have prospered so well in our hands, that we have delivered Israel oftentimes. 3 And now I am old, but be you instead of me, and my brethren, and go out, and fight for our nation, and the help from heaven be with you. 5 And they arose in the morning, and went into the plain, and behold a very great army of footmen and horsemen came against them, and there was a running river between them. 7 And he divided the people, and set the horsemen in the midst of the footmen, but the horsemen of the enemies were very numerous. 8 And they sounded the holy trumpets, and Sendebius and his army were put to flight, and there fell many of them wounded, and the rest fled into the stronghold. 9 At that time, Judas, John's brother, was wounded, but John pursued after them, till he came to Cedron, which he had built. 10 And they fled even to the towers that were in the fields of Azotus, and he burnt them with fire. And there fell of them 2,000 men. And he returned into Judea in peace. 11 Now Ptolemy, the son of Ababus, was appointed captain in the plain of Jericho, and he had abundance of silver and gold. 12 For he was son-in-law of the high priest. 13 And his heart was lifted up, and he designed to make himself master of the country. And he purposed treachery against Simon and his sons, to destroy them. 14 Now Simon, as he was going through the cities that were in the country of Judea, and taking care for the good ordering of them, went down to Jericho, he and Mattathias and Judas, his sons, in the year 177, the 11th month, the same is the Month Sabbath. 15 And the son of Ababas received them deceitfully into a little fortress, that is called Doch, which he had built, and he made them a great feast, and hid men there. 16 And when Simon and his sons had drunk plentifully, Ptolemy and his men rose up, and took their weapons, and entered into the banqueting place, and slew him, and his 2 sons, and some of his servants. 17 And he committed a great treachery in Israel, and rendered evil for good. 18 And Ptolemy wrote these things, and sent to the king that he should send him an army to aid him, and he would deliver him the country, and their cities, and tributes. 19 And he sent others to Gezerah to kill John. And to the tribunes he sent letters to come to him, and that he would give them silver, and gold, and gifts. 20 And he sent others to take Jerusalem, and the mountain of the temple. 21 Now one running before, told John in Gezerah, that his father and his brethren were slain, and that he hath sent men to kill thee also. 22 But when he heard it, he was exceedingly afraid, and he apprehended the men that came to kill him, and he put them to death, for he knew that they sought to make him away. 23 And as concerning the rest of the acts of John, and his wars, and the worthy deeds which he bravely achieved, and the building of the walls, which he made, and the things that he did. 24 Behold, these are written in the book of the days of his priesthood, from the time that he was made high priest after his father. Second Book of Maccabees. Chapter 1. To the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, the brethren, the Jews that are in Jerusalem, and in the land of Judea, send health and good peace. May second God be gracious to you, and remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servants. 3 And give you all a heart to worship him, and to do his will with a great heart, and a willing mind. 36 And Nehemiah called this place Nephthar, which is interpreted purification. But many call it Nephi. Now it is found in the descriptions of Jeremias the prophet, that he commanded them that went into captivity, to take the fire, as it hath been signified, and how he gave charge to them that were carried away into captivity. 2 And how he gave them the law, that they should not forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err in their minds, seeing the idols of gold, and silver, and the ornaments of them. 9 For he treated wisdom in a magnificent manner, and like a wise man, he offered the sacrifice of dedication, and of the finishing of the temple. 24 And all such things as have been comprised in 5 books by Jason, of Cyrene, we have attempted to abridge in 1 book. 25 For considering the multitude of books, and the difficulty that they find that desire to undertake the narrations of histories, because of the multitude of the matter. 26 We have taken care for those indeed that are willing to read, that it might be a pleasure of mind, and for the studious, that they may more easily commit to memory, and that all that read might receive profit. 27 And as to ourselves indeed, in undertaking this work of abridging, we have taken in hand no easy task, yea, rather a business full of watching and sweat. 28 But as they that prepare a feast, and seek to satisfy the will of others, for the sake of many, we willingly undergo the labor. 29 Leaving to the authors the exact handling of every particular, and as for ourselves, according to the plan proposed, studying to be brief. 30 For as the master builder of a new house must have care of the whole building, but he that taketh care to paint it, must seek out fit things for the adorning of it, so must it be judged of us. 31 For to collect all that is to be known, to put the discourse in order, and curiously to discuss every particular point, is the duty of the author of a history. 32 But to pursue brevity of speech, and to avoid nice declarations of things, is to be granted to him that maketh an abridgment. 33 Here then we will begin the narration. Let this be enough by way of a preface, for it is a foolish thing to make a long prologue, and to be short in the story itself. Therefore, when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws as yet were very well kept, because of the godliness of Onias, the high priest, and the hatred his soul had of evil. 2 It came to pass that even the kings themselves and the princes esteemed the place worthy of the highest honor, and glorified the temple with very great gifts. 3 So that Seleucus, king of Asia, allowed out of his revenues all the charges belonging to the Ministry of the sacrifices. 4 But one Simon, of the tribe of Benjamin, who was appointed overseer of the temple, strove, in opposition to the high priest, to bring about some unjust thing in the city. But Simon, of whom we spoke before, who was the betrayer of the money, and of his country, spoke ill of Onias, as though he had incited Heliodorus to do these things, and had been the promoter of evils. 13 Now this was not the beginning, but an increase, and progress of heathenish and foreign manners, through the abominable and unheard of wickedness of Jason, that impious wretch, and no priest. 23 3 years afterwards Jason sent Menelaus, brother of the aforesaid Simon, to carry money to the king, and to bring answers from him concerning certain necessary affairs. 25 So having received the king's mandate, he returned, bringing nothing worthy of the high priesthood, but having the mind of a cruel tyrant, and the rage of a savage beast. At the same time Antiochus prepared for a second journey into Egypt. 2 And it came to pass, that through the whole city of Jerusalem, for the space of 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air, in gilded raiment, and armed with spears, like bands of soldiers. 5 Now when there was gone forth a false rumor as though Antiochus had been dead, Jason, taking with him no fewer than 1,000 men, suddenly assaulted the city, and though the citizens ran together to the wall, the city at length was taken, and Menelaus fled into the castle. 6 But Jason slew his countrymen without mercy, not considering that prosperity against one's own kindred is a very great evil, thinking they had been enemies, and not citizens, whom he conquered. 11 Now when these things were done, the king suspected that the Jews would forsake the alliance, whereupon departing out of Egypt with a furious mind, he took the city by force of arms. 12 And commanded the soldiers to kill, and not to spare any that came in their way, and to go up into the houses to slay. 16 And taking in his wicked hands the holy vessels, which were given by other kings and cities, for the ornament and the glory of the place, he unworthily handled and profaned them. 17 Thus Antiochus going astray in mind, did not consider that God was angry for a while, because of the sins of the inhabitants of the city. And therefore this contempt had happened to the place. 18 Otherwise had they not been involved in many sins, as Heliodorus, who was sent by King Seleucus to rob the treasury, so this man also, as soon as he had come, had been forthwith scourged, and put back from his presumption. 19 But God did not choose the people for the place's sake, but the place for the people's sake. 20 And, therefore, the place also itself was made partaker of the evils of the people, but afterwards shall communicate in the good things thereof, and as it was forsaken in the wrath of Almighty God, shall be exalted again with great glory, when the great Lord shall be reconciled. 26 And he slew all that were come forth to flee, and running through the city with armed men, he destroyed a very great multitude. 27 But Judas Maccabeus, who was the 10th, had withdrawn himself into a desert place, and there lived amongst wild beasts in the mountains with his company, and they continued feeding on herbs, that they might not be partakers of the pollution. But not long after the king sent a certain old man of Antioch, to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and of God. 3 And very bad was this invasion of evils, and grievous to all. 9 And whosoever would not conform themselves to the ways of the Gentiles, should be put to death, then was misery to be seen. 12 Now I beseech those that shall read this book, that they be not shocked at these calamities, but that they consider the things that happened, not as being for the destruction, but for the correction of our nation. 13 For it is a token of great goodness, when sinners are not suffered to go on in their ways for a long time, but are presently punished. 14 And when he was now ready to die, he spoke thus, It is better, being put to death by men, to look for hope from God, to be raised up again by him, for, as to thee, thou shalt have no resurrection unto life. 15 And when they had brought the 5th, they tormented him. But he, looking upon the king, 16 said, Whereas thou hast power among men, though thou art corruptible, thou dost what thou wilt, but think not that our nation is forsaken by God. 17 But stay patiently a while, and thou shalt see his great power, in what manner he will torment thee and thy seed. 27 So bending herself towards him, mocking the cruel tyrant, she said in her own language. My son, have pity upon me, that bore thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto this age. 28 I beseech thee, my son, look upon heaven and earth, and all that is in them, and consider that God made them out of nothing, and mankind also. 29 So thou shalt not fear this tormentor, but, being made a worthy partner with thy brethren, receive death, that in that mercy I may receive thee again with thy brethren. 41 And last of all, after the sons, the mother also was consumed. But Judas Maccabeus, and they that were with him, went privately into the towns, and calling together their kinsmen and friends, and taking unto them such as continued in the Jews' religion, they assembled 6,000 men. 2 And they called upon the Lord, that he would look upon his people that was trodden down by all, and would have pity on the temple that was defiled by the wicked. 3 That he would have pity also upon the city that was destroyed, that was ready to be made, even with the ground, and would hear the voice of the blood that cried to him. 12 Now when Judas found that Nicanor was coming, he imparted to the Jews that were with him, that the enemy was at hand. 16 But Maccabeus, calling together 7,000 that were with him, exhorted them not to be reconciled to the enemies, nor to fear the multitude of the enemies who came wrongfully against them, but to fight manfully. 18 For, said he, they trust in their weapons and in their boldness, but we trust in the Almighty Lord, who at a beck can utterly destroy both them that come against us, and the whole world. 24 And the Almighty being their helper, they slew above 9,000 men, and having wounded and disabled the greater part of Nicanor's army, they obliged them to fly. 28 Then after the Sabbath they divided the spoils to the feeble and the orphans, and the widows, and the rest they took for themselves and their servants. 32 They slew also Philarchus, who was with Timotheus, a wicked man, who had many ways afflicted the Jews. 33 And when they kept the feast of the victory at Jerusalem, they burned Callus thence, that had set fire to the holy gates, who had taken refuge in a certain house, rendering to him a worthy reward for his impieties. 34 But as for that most wicked man, Nicanor, who had brought 1,000 merchants to the sale of the Jews, 35 Being, through the help of the Lord, brought down by them, of whom he had made no account, laying aside his garment of glory, fleeing through the midland country, he came alone to Antioch, being rendered very unhappy by the destruction of his army. 36 And he that had promised to levy the tribute for the Romans, by the means of the captives of Jerusalem, now professed that the Jews had God for their protector, and therefore they could not be hurt, because they followed the laws appointed by him. At that time Antiochus returned with Disianur out of Persia. 2 For he had entered into the city called Persepolis, and attempted to rob the temple, and to oppress the city, but the multitude running together to arms, put them to flight, and so it fell out that Antiochus being put to flight, returned with disgrace. 3 Now when he was come about Ecbatana, he received the news of what had happened to Nicanor and Timotheus. 4 And swelling with anger, he thought to revenge upon the Jews the injury done by them that had put him to flight. 5 But the Lord, the God of Israel, that seeth all things, struck him with an incurable and an invisible plague. For as soon as he had ended these words, a dreadful pain in his bowels came upon him, and bitter torments of the inner parts. But Maccabeus, and they that were with him, by the protection of the Lord, recovered the temple and the city again. 3 And having purified the temple, they made another altar, and taking fire out of the fiery stones, they offered sacrifices after 2 years, and set forth incense and lamps and the loaves of proposition. 4 And when they had done these things, they besought the Lord, lying prostrate on the ground, that they might no more fall into such evils, but if they should at any time sin, that they might be chastised by him more gently, and not be delivered up to barbarians and blasphemous men. 19 Maccabeus left Simon and Joseph, and Zacharias, and them that were with them, in sufficient number to besiege them, and departed to those expeditions which urged more. 20 Now they that were with Simon, being led with covetousness, were persuaded for the sake of money by some that were in the towers, and taking 70,000 didrachmas, let some of them escape. 21 But when it was told Maccabeus what was done, he assembled the rulers of the people, and accused those men that they had sold their brethren for money, having let their adversaries escape. 22 So he put these traitors to death, and forthwith took the 2 towers. 37 And having for 2 days together pillaged and sacked the fortress, they killed Timotheus, who was found hid in a certain place. They slew also his brother Charias, and Apollophans. 38 And when this was done, they blessed the Lord with hymns and thanksgiving, who had done great things in Israel, and given them the victory. A short time after this Lysias, the king's lieutenant and cousin, and who had chief charge over all the affairs, being greatly displeased with what had happened, gathered together 80,000 men, and all the horsemen, and came against the Jews, thinking to take the city, and make it a habitation of the Gentiles. 6 But when Maccabeus, and they that were with him, understood that the strongholds were besieged, they and all the people besought the Lord with lamentations and tears, that he would send a good angel to save Israel. 7 Then Maccabeus himself, first taking his arms, exhorted the rest to expose themselves together with him, to the danger, and to succor their brethren. 8 And when they were going forth together with a willing mind, there appeared at Jerusalem a horseman going before them in white clothing, with golden armor, shaking a spear. 9 Then they all together blessed the merciful Lord, and took great courage, being ready to break through not only men, but also the fiercest beasts, and walls of iron. 10 So they went on courageously, having a helper from heaven, and the Lord, who shewed mercy to them. 11 And rushing violently upon the enemy, like lions, they slew of them 11,000 footmen, and 1,600 horsemen. 12 And Lysias himself fled away shamefully, and escaped. 13 And as he was a man of understanding, considering with himself the loss he had suffered, and perceiving that the Hebrews could not be overcome, because they relied upon the help of the Almighty God, he sent to them. 14 And promised that he would agree to all things that are just, and that he would persuade the king to be their friend. 26 Then Judas went away to Carnion, where he slew 25,000 persons. 32 And after Pentecost they marched against Gorgias, the governor of Idumea. In the year 149, Judas understood that Antiochus Eupator was coming with a multitude against Judea. 3 Menelaus also joined himself with them, and with great deceitfulness besought Antiochus, not for the welfare of his country, but in hopes that he should be appointed chief ruler. 4 But the King of Kings stirred up the mind of Antiochus against the sinner, and upon Lysias, suggesting that he was the cause of all the evils. He commanded, as the custom is with them, that he should be apprehended and put to death in the same place. 21 But Rhodocus, one of the Jews' army, disclosed the secrets to the enemies, so he was sought out, and taken up, and put in prison. 23 He fought with Judas, and was overcome. And when he understood that Philip, who had been left over the affairs, had rebelled at Antioch, he was in a consternation of mind, and eating the Jews, and yielding to them, he swore to all things that seemed reasonable, and being reconciled, offered sacrifice, honored the temple, and left gifts. 24 He embraced Maccabeus, and made him governor and prince from Ptolemy unto the Geronians. 25 But when he was come to Ptolemy, the men of that city were much displeased with the conditions of the peace, being angry for fear they should break the covenant. 26 Then Lysias went up to the judgment seat, and set forth the reason, and appeased the people, and returned to Antioch, and thus matters went with regard to the king's coming and his return. Chapter 14 But after the space of 3 years Judas, and they that were with him, understood that Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, was come up with a great power, and a navy by the haven of Tripolis, to places proper for his purpose. 12 And forthwith he sent Nicanor, the commander over the elephants, governor into Judea. 13 Giving him in charge, to take Judas himself, and disperse all them that were with him, and to make Alcimus the high priest of the great temple. 22 But Judas ordered armed men to be ready in convenient places, lest some mischief might be suddenly practiced by the enemies, so they made an agreeable conference. 23 And Nicanor abode in Jerusalem, and did no wrong, but sent away the flocks of the multitudes that had been gathered together. 24 And Judas was always dear to him from the heart, and he was well affected to the man. 25 And he desired him to marry a wife, and to have children. So he married, he lived quietly. And they lived in common. 26 But Alcimus, seeing the love they had one to another, and the covenants, came to Demetrius, and told him that Nicanor had assented to the foreign interest, for that he meant to make Judas, who was a traitor to the kingdom, his successor. 33 And swore, saying, Unless you deliver Judas prisoner to me, I will lay this temple of God, even with the ground, and will beat down the altar, and I will dedicate this temple to Bacchus. 34 And when he had spoken thus, he departed. But the priests, stretching forth their hands to heaven, called upon him that was ever the defender of their nation, saying in this manner. 35 Thou, O Lord of all things, who wantest nothing, wast pleased that the temple of thy habitation should be amongst us. 36 Therefore now, O Lord, the Holy of all holies, keep this house forever undefiled, which was lately cleansed. 37 Now Razias, one of the ancients of Jerusalem, was accused to Nicanor, a man that was a lover of the city, and of good report, who for his kindness was called the father of the Jews. 39 So Nicanor, being willing to declare the hatred that he bore the Jews, sent 500 soldiers to take him. 40 For he thought by ensnaring him to hurt the Jews very much. 41 Now as the multitude sought to rush into his house, and to break open the door, and to set fire to it, when he was ready to be taken, he struck himself with his sword. 42 Choosing to die nobly rather than to fall into the hands of the wicked, and to suffer abuses unbecoming his noble birth. But when Nicanor understood that Judas was in the places of Samaria, he purposed to set upon him with all violence, on the Sabbath day. 2 And when the Jews that were constrained to follow him, said, Do not act so fiercely and barbarously, but give honor to the day that is sanctified, and reverence him that beholdeth all things. 6 So Nicanor, being puffed up with exceeding great pride, thought to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas. 7 But Maccabeus ever trusted with all hope that God would help them. 8 And he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the nations, but to remember the help they had before received from heaven, and now to hope for victory from the Almighty. 9 And speaking to them out of the law, and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles they had fought before, he made them more cheerful. 10 Then after he had encouraged them, he shewed withal the falsehood of the Gentiles, and their breach of oaths. 11 So he armed every one of them, not with defense of shield and spear, but with very good speeches and exhortations, and told them a dream worthy to be believed, whereby he rejoiced them all. 12 Now the vision was in this manner. Onias, who had been high priest, a good and virtuous man, modest in his looks, gentle in his manners, and graceful in speech, and who from a child was exercised in virtues, holding up his hands, prayed for all the people of the Jews. 13 After this there appeared also another man, admirable for age and glory, and environed with great beauty and majesty. 14 Then Onias answering, said, This is a lover of his brethren, and of the people of Israel, this is he that prayeth much for the people, and for all the holy city, Jeremias, the prophet of God. 15 Whereupon Jeremias stretched forth his right hand, and gave to Judas a sword of gold, saying, 16 Take this holy sword, a gift from God, wherewith thou shalt overthrow the adversaries of my people Israel. 17 Thus being exhorted with the words of Judas, which were very good, and proper to stir up the courage, and strengthen the hearts of the young men, they resolved to fight, and to set upon them manfully, that valor might decide the matter, because the holy city, and the temple, were in danger. 18 For their concern was less for their wives and children, and for their brethren, and kinsfolks, but their greatest and principal fear was for the holiness of the temple. 19 And they also that were in the city, had no little concern for them that were to be engaged in battle. 20 And now when all expected what judgment would be given, and the enemies were at hand, and the army was set in array, the beasts and the horsemen ranged in convenient places. 21 Maccabeus, considering the coming of the multitude, and the divers preparations of armor, and the fierceness of the beasts, stretching out his hands to heaven, called upon the Lord, that worketh wonders, who giveth victory to them that are worthy, not according to the power of their arms, but according as it seemeth good to him. 22 And in his prayer he said after this manner: Thou, O Lord, who didst send thy angel in the time of Ezekias, king of Judah, and didst kill 185,000 of the army of Sennacherib. 23 Send now also, O Lord of heaven, thy good angel before us, for the fear and dread of the greatness of thy arm. 24 That they may be afraid, who come with blasphemy against thy holy people. And thus he concluded his prayer. 25 But Nicanor, and they that were with him, came forward, with trumpets and songs. 26 But Judas, and they that were with him, encountered them, calling upon God by prayers. 27 So fighting with their hands, but praying to the Lord with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000, being greatly cheered with the presence of God. 28 And when the battle was over, and they were returning with joy, they understood that Nicanor was slain in his armor. 29 Then making a shout, and a great noise, they blessed the Almighty Lord in their own language. 30 And Judas, who was altogether ready, in body and mind, to die for his countrymen, commanded that Nicanor's head, and his hand, with the shoulder, should be cut off, and carried to Jerusalem. 31 And when he was come thither, having called together his countrymen, and the priests, to the altar, he sent also for them that were in the castle. 32 And shewing them the head of Nicanor, and the wicked hand, which he had stretched out, with proud boasts, against the holy house of the Almighty God. 33 He commanded also, that the tongue of the wicked Nicanor should be cut out, and given by pieces to birds, and the hand of the furious man to be hanged up over against the temple. 34 Then all blessed the Lord of heaven, saying, Blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled. 35 And he hung up Nicanor's head in the top of the castle, that it might be an evident and manifest sign of the help of God. 36 And they all ordained by a common decree, by no means to let this day pass without solemnity. 37 But to celebrate the 13th day of the month of Adar, called in the Syrian language the day before Mordecai's day. 38 So these things being done with relation to Nicanor, and from that time the city being possessed by the Hebrews, I also will here make an end of my narration. 39 Which if I have done well, and as it becometh the history, it is what I desired, but if not so perfectly, it must be pardoned me. 40 For as it is hurtful to drink always wine, or always water, but pleasant to use sometimes the one, and sometimes the other, so if the speech be always nicely framed, it will not be grateful to the readers. But here it shall be ended.